Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Timmy Kemza James. So in this video I'm going to show you how to cut this peplum blouse that I have on. So the blouse was inspired by this lady Rockefeller on Instagram, but I sort of made mine a little bit different. So let's get into it, guys. So guys, I already have my pattern paper ruled out. So the lines that I made that you're seeing here is, the first one is the distance from my shoulder. I'm going to use the starting point of this pattern as my shoulder measurement. So I will use from there to my armhole or my chest, then to my bust point. Then the next line is my underbust and my affluence point, then the hem of the blouse, which I'm using for 24.5. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to insert my neckline measurement. So I'm doing the 3 inches standard neckline and the 8 inches standard armhole. If you're familiar with my tutorials, you should know what this is by now. Then from that 8 inches, I'm going to go further to make 1 inch shoulder slant, like so, and I'll extend that line. So I'll connect it to the 3 inches here to give me my shoulder slope. So I'll extend it further. So here is the 8-inch point. Now my shoulder is more than 16 inches. So this 8 inches, half of 16 actually, because I'm working on just one side of my shoulder, right? So I'm going to extend it by 1 inch to give me my actual shoulder measurement. So I extended it by 1 inch, which is my actual shoulder measurement. So whatever I have here, I'm going to bring the same measurement here and I'll mark that on my armhole line. Then I'll connect the line like so. I'll just go ahead and square it out. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to mark my bust measurement. So I'm going to be marking a quarter of my bust measurement here. Then on my affluence point, I'll mark a quarter of my affluence measurement as well. Then on this hem side, this hem side is really not going to be necessary for me, but usually you mark your hip measurement, but I'm just going to leave here. Let me just mark a quarter of my hip measurement. So basically what I'm doing now is to draft a basic bodice. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect my lines like so and like so. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to mark my bust measurement on my bust point. Now let's label our line. So this is my chest line / my armhole line as well. Then this is my bust point line. I'm labeling it BP. My underbust, which is UB. Then my affluence or waist measurement and the length of my top. So on my bust point, I'm going to mark half of my bust span. That's the distance from one nipple to another. So I'm coming down to the affluence point to mark the same thing, and likewise the hem side as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect that in a straight line. I'll just rule a line across like so. So I'm going to take my dart now. So I'm working with 1 inch on both sides. So I'll mark 1 inch here and 1 inch here, or let me do 1.1 and 1.1 on this side. So on the affluence side as well, I'll do the same thing, 1.1 on both sides. So I'll just go ahead and connect. So I mark this on the underbust, mind you, and the affluence. So I'll just go ahead and connect like so. Then I'll just connect it to the hem of the blouse as well, like so. So now back to the bust, I'll connect it to the bust point to bring down my dart. Now this is not all about my dart. I'm going to be doing my underbust tightening. Now I'm taking 1.1 on both sides, is a total of 2.2 inches, right? And I'm doing that because I'm busty or I'm full chested. So if you are not full chested, you go ahead and watch my video on how I discussed elaborately on how much darts to take on your own garments. I'll be linking it up here. So Now if you're not yet subscribed, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on things like that. Now let's go further. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to be working with the shoulder darts instead of the regular armhole darts that I make here. So for the shoulder dart, I'm going to be marking half of my shoulder measurement. So I'll mark half of that, then I'll take 1 inch on both sides. And now don't forget the blouse is cropped, so I'm just going to take 2 inches on both sides, guys, because I'm eventually not even going to be cutting out the shoulder because it has sort of a yoke on it. So I would take 2 inches. That's a total of 4 inches. That now don't forget, that's also because I'm a full-chested woman, so I'll just connect that, and I need a lot of room on the bust, on my bust side. So I'll just connect my measurements like so. Now the next measurement I'm going to be taking is this, my underbust measurement, just on my underbust. I'll take that measurement, then I'll mark 1/4 of it like so on this side. So I'll just go ahead and mark 1/4 of it on my underbust. Now from this point where I have 1/4 of my underbust, what I'm trying to do is to tighten my underbust so that I don't have any excess fabric, and it will give me more room or more cup for me to fit in properly. So I'll measure what I have. I have 1.5 inch allowance. So on this side, which is the side bust measurement, I'll mark 1 inch for that. Then the remaining ½ inch, I'll put it on the center front side, right, panel. So I'll put ½ inch here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to curve from here to my bust point, and I'm going to be using my French curve so that it gives me sort of a very nice and a subtle curve. Now look at how I'm putting my curve. Just pay close attention to this. Now, in as much as I should bring it exactly to this point, there's nobody who has a bust that is sort of pointed like this. So I would rather make my curve, this fuller side of the curve, to match on this line that goes upwards. So I'm just going to make my curve like so. So this would help me to make the bust, my bust side, a lot flattery. So I'll do the same thing for this side of my body as well. So I'll do the same thing like so, and I'll mark like this. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to connect this line to this point like so. So from this point now, I'll connect it to the, I'm going to be connecting from here down to this hem, or you can connect it to this point. It's still the same, it's totally fine. So I'll connect it back to my affluence point like so, and I'll connect this one as well down here. So you can see it has actually it has given me a wider dart, and by the time I join these two panels together, I'll have a fuller, like my bust will have more room on this side. So now let's go ahead to mark our neckline, and then also to mark the side where it has a bast before the peplum. So now I'm going to mark my neckline. So from here, the depth of the neckline that I want to work with is 3.5 inches. So I'll mark 3.5 here. That's where the yoke neckline will start. But from the yoke to the place where my curve starts from, I want it to be around 8.5 inches, right? So that's because I want a sweetheart neck. So I'm going to mark 8.5 inches like so. Then from here, I'll mark it upwards by 4 inches like so. So I'm going to come over with my French curve and sort of mark it to give me that really beautiful sweetheart neck. So I'll just, what you want to do is to get the best position for your sweetheart neck. I think this other side is better for me. So you can do this by freehand. You don't have to use the French curve if you don't have, so don't worry about that. So to continue drafting on this side, I'll measure what I have from this sweetheart neck. I'll measure what I have round, so that I'll be sure that when I sew it, it will align properly. So I'll just measure down to this point. I have 19.2, so I'm going to measure 19.2 from here as well, like so. And I have 19.2 on this side, so I'll mark 19.2 there. Then I'll just connect it to this side, like so. So by the time I join the two panels together, it will match. So this is it about my front side, except for the basque effect. Now don't forget that darts are depth. Wherever you take darts, you have to pay it back. So I have a total of, don't forget these darts that I took here for 2.2 here. For this other extension of this dart here, don't forget that it's just this difference that I have here that I took out, and it's supposed to be excess from my material. So I'm going to pay back just this dart on the middle, that's the 2.2. So on the affluence point, I'll come to the line there and pay back my 2.2 inches dart, like so. Then I would go ahead and connect it to the hem of, to this hem side here. I'll just go ahead and connect that, like so. Then I'm going to be marking, now I have a dart on this side which I took here, so it's a total of, I'll just measure the dart, this opening here, I have around 0.75, so I'll pay back that 0.75 here, like so. So I'm going to be connecting it to this point. I know the shape looks weird, but that's basically because of how my body looks. So by the time I take this one will go back nicely. Now I'm going to be adding my sewing allowance, which you can add later. So I'll be needing ½ inch to sew this side and this side. So it's a total of either 1 inch, or you can use ¼ inch on both sides and add ½ inch instead, but I would work with ½ inch on both sides. So I'll mark 1 inch for the sewing allowance. Then I'm going to be needing 2 inches sewing allowance, which I'll be adding like so to join the front and the back together. So on this midpoint as well, I'll do the same thing. I'll add my sewing allowances. Sorry, I'll come to my affluence point and add my sewing allowance plus joining allowance. Then on my hip as well, I'll add my sewing allowance for both panels and my joining allowance. So I'll just connect this point together. Don't worry about this shape here. When I join it, it will all come together. So now I'm going to be marking my armhole curve. So I'll just go ahead and mark my armhole curve. Now don't forget that I'm going to be sewing here and here together as well. So I'm going to also add 1 inch for the sewing allowance on that side as well. So I'll just mark 1 inch here and I'll connect the line like so. Then I'll reshape my armhole curve. I'll retrace it. So this is my new armhole curve. So this is my side panel and this is my center panel. Now let's come over. Now for the back, it's just going to be a basic back, like a basic straight back. So I'll draft that off camera. But for the back skin, so this is the affluence point where I want my peplum to start the joining from, right? So I'm going to mark that 2 inches sewing allowance inwards. So from here I'll mark the 2 inches like so on the affluence, that's on the affluence point. So I marked my 2 inches like so. Now depending on how you want to back your peplum, you can just go ahead and do that. So for mine, I'm going to mark 1 inch here. Now this 1 inch I'm going to use as joining allowance for my peplum. So it's eventually not even going to be here, or at most it will be a total of ½ inch that will be here. So I'm going to start my back seam by freehand. So what you want to do is to get this to come, you want to just get this side to sort of go slanted. Let me just show you what I mean. So I'll go like this at first up to here. Now I'll measure what I have here, like so. I have 4.5, so I'll go and mark the 4.5 on this line here. Then I'll continue back seam from there to come and meet this side like so. So what I've done now is to close, to give me sort of a basque shape. So this one will go all the way here, so I'll be cutting that out. So let me draft that and show you what I'm going to do at the back. Now back to the front. This is our back side. So what I'm going to do next on the front is this. Just like I said, that's our depth. So this darts that we have here, don't forget. So we actually paid back part of it to create this armhole here. So we need to pay the rest of it, because I'm going to cut a yoke, which is here, this side like so. Is going to be attached to these bodies as well. So what I'm going to do is to measure the distance from the beginning side of the yoke to this side like so. So I have 9.2. So I will measure from this side of my bust as well. So I'll measure to this point where I have this line, right? I have 4.6. So I'll continue, I'll omit the darts and continue from here with the 4.6 like so up to this side of my armhole. You can see I have around almost 8.5. So, and actually what I want is 9.2, so I'll mark 9.2 here, so that by the time I join these bodies to this, it will align properly and I don't have shortage on that point. So I will extend this line to that 9.3 points. Then I'll retrace my armhole. So don't forget to do these steps on your bodies, because if you forget, you're most likely going to have issues joining them together. So this is now my armhole. Now this is a dart, don't forget, and this side as well I'll be cutting out. So these are darts. Now that is it for the front. For the back side of it as well, I just drafted my basic body. So the only difference is this: I took in from this side, which is the zipper allowance inwards, I took 1 inch here. Now that will help me eliminate zip bulge, and I took the same 1 inch from here, from the affluence upwards. That will help me eliminate total elimination of zip bulge as well. So this one that I took vertically, I'm taking it up to somewhere close to the neckline, and this one I connected it to this point. Then I marked my dart and I just marked my yoke point. Now for my yoke point, it's just simply the same length as my front armhole, right? So it's just simply the same length, 4.5, and as well 4.5 on this side as well. So that was what I basically did. So this line here is a demarcation between my yoke and my back bodies. So for the back, I'm not even drafting anything lower here, because my back side is going to stop on my affluence point. So because it's just my affluence that is going to meet this affluence, so I added my sewing allowance as well. This line that you see here is my sewing allowance. So this sewing allowance will match this sewing allowance, and that will be it. So now let's cut so that you will get a proper understanding of what I'm doing. So first off, I'll start cutting from these back points like so. So here are all my panels. This is my back yoke and the center, front and back. Now I'm going to add sewing allowance on this side, just this dark side that I took out. I did not include the sewing allowance for that, so I'll include that on fabric when I'm cutting, and I've not added zipper allowance, so I'll go ahead and do that as well. So the back is pretty much self-explanatory. So this is the front side. So for the front, this is what will happen. This will meet here, so you can see that back's effect is very proper around here. So this is supposed to meet here, and this will go all the way to this point, right, to create my bust cup, right? So, and then the yoke. So let me match the yoke for you to see why I had to add this allowance. So by the time I match it like so, you can see it's matching up to here like this. If not, it would have stopped somewhere around here and I would have excess on the yoke. So this is it. Now I'm going to cut out all my pattern pieces. Now for the peplum, it's just a very straight long according to the length of the peplum you want, and then every other thing is just going to be a very straight and a long piece of fabric that I'm going to be splitting, right? So let's get into cutting the fabric. So here are all my pattern pieces. I have my center front, my two side front. I went ahead to cut them out. The center front is on fold, so I cut it out and I added my lace as well. So I also added interfacing. I used wording, but you can go ahead and use any interfacing that works better for you for the project. So I added wording all through because I wanted it to sort of cringe my front, my belly as well. So I added the wording just on the front side of it. So this is the front, like so. And we have our front yoke, which I cut in the Ankara material. So it's going to be like so up here. Then the back as well. But on the back side, I did not add my wording. As you can see, these are the back panels. It does not have wording. So it's just the lace and the interfacing. So when I was done, I cut out these panels, which are really long. So if you look at the style properly, it's a 2-tier peplum. So for the peplum, I just cut it out straight. It's just a straight stitch. So I have this one which measures 9 inches and this one measures 6.5 inches. So I'm going to double the peplum to be 2 tiers. Then this is actually by 5 yards. You don't have to go all the way 5 yards, but I didn't want to stress in calculating too much because it has inverted pleats, so I'm going to be pleating it like that. So this is so long, and if you don't have enough fabric, you can cut and join, because I'm going to be joining mine as well. This is 2.5. I have 2 of these and I'll be joining that as well. So for those who don't have enough fabric, and I also added interfacing to it, but this one is a very light fusible interfacing. So you don't even have to do this. I just did it to enable the peplum to give it more structure, and I'm going to be adding crinoline as well. So basically that's the peplum side. It's just a very straight piece of fabric that measures 5 yards long, and it's by 9. The next one is by 6.5, depending on how wide you want your peplum to be.
So watch out for the part 2, guys, and if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, subscribe and turn on post notifications so that you'll be notified when the video is up. And please like my videos and share my video with your friends, guys. Just note, at this point I had not zipped the dress yet, so see you guys in my next video.